Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please have a seat. Have a seat. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the White House. And welcome to the United States of America.
I'm really excited to reveal Ugandans. We were hosted by President in Washington in April. We wanted to share those experiences and what we learned from there.
It's my great privilege to welcome all of you to this Young African Leaders Forum. You've joined us from nearly 50 countries. You reflect the extraordinary history and diversity of the continent. You've already distinguished yourselves as leaders in civil society and development and business and faith communities, and you've got an extraordinary future before you. The great progress that many Africans have achieved and the unlimited potential that you've got going forward into the 21st century. Now, I called this forum for a simple reason. As I said when I was in Accra last year, I don't see Africa as a world apart. I see Africa as a fundamental part of our interconnected world, whether it's creating jobs in a global economy or delivering education and healthcare, combating climate change, standing up to violent extremists who offer nothing but destruction, or promoting successful models of democracy and development. For all this, we have to have a strong, self-reliant, and prosperous Africa.
Thank you for, first of all, being a part of the
Thank you.
And that was the second time for you, for interacting with such big people. For me, it was the first time. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh my God, I have to give a message next to this person. So it was a wonderful experience. But give me your account of the visit and what you hope to do as a result of that visit.
So the world needs your talents and your creativity. We need young Africans who are standing up and making things happen, not only in their own countries, but around the world. And the United States wants to be your partner. So I'm pleased that you've already heard from Secretary of State Clinton, and that we're joined today by leaders from across my administration who are working to deepen that partnership every day. You know, I can't imagine a more fitting time for this gathering. This year, people in 17 nations across sub-Saharan Africa are proudly celebrating 50 years of independence. And by any measure, 1960 was an extraordinary year. From Senegal to Gabon, from Madagascar to Nigeria, Africans rejoiced in the streets as foreign flags were lowered and their own were hoisted up. So in 12 remarkable months, nearly 1/3 of the continent achieved independence, a burst of self-determination that came to be celebrated as the Year of Africa. At long last, these Africans were free to chart their own course and to shape their own destiny. Now, 1960, of course, was significant for another reason. Here in the United States of America, it was the year that a candidate for president first proposed an idea for young people in our own country to devote a year or two abroad in service to the world. And that candidate was John F. Kennedy. And that idea would become the Peace Corps, one of our great partnerships with the world, including with Africa.
For me, first of all, it was an honor to be really an honor and a blessing.
Me too.
To be recognized as one of the entrepreneurs in Africa. That meant a lot. Remember, we're only 32 of us.
Yeah.
So to be one of the 32 entrepreneurs from Africa, to be recognized and told to go and meet President Obama was already an honor for me. I remember I used to 2 years ago, I told my daughter, I said, I'll meet President Obama. And she was like, Mommy, you overdream. You know, no dream is too big. So let's see. When you're in Uganda, in your small cocoon country as women entrepreneurs in Africa, you don't realize the diversity that is out there. You don't realize the resources that you can tap into. You don't even realize the small stories people can tell of where they started. I think when we read about them in news and see them on TV, we think they just dropped from somewhere and became something. No, when you hear the stories, you realize, you know what? I can also be one of them.
So once again, Africa finds itself at a moment of extraordinary promise. And as I said last year, while today's challenges may lack some of the drama of 20th century liberation struggles, they ultimately may be even more meaningful. For it will be up to you, young people full of talent and imagination, to build the Africa for the next 50 years. Africa's future belongs to entrepreneurs, like the small business owner from Djibouti who began selling ice cream and now runs his own accounting practice and advises other entrepreneurs. That's Miguel Hassan Farah. Is Miguel here? There he is right there. Don't be shy. There you go. As you work to create jobs and opportunity, America will work with you, promoting the trade and investment on which growth depends. That's why we're proud to be hosting the AGOA Forum this week to expand trade between our countries, and today I'll also be meeting with trade, commerce, and agricultural ministers from across sub-Saharan Africa. It's also why our historic food security initiative isn't simply about delivering food, it's about sharing new technologies to increase African productivity and self-sufficiency. Now, no one should have to pay a bribe to get a job or to get government to provide basic services. So, as part of our development strategy.
Someone to say 5 years ago they started a company and now they are employing over 5,000 people. I mean, it's a story you want to listen to because you get inspired. For me, the whole journey was about inspiration from other people and the diversity and affirmation.
I felt affirmed.
Yeah, I know.
I felt affirmed. You know, you can't tell me I haven't done nothing for this public gift. President Obama can affirm me, honestly.
I know.
You know? But when you met him on the first day, you remember he talked to us, he gave us a speech at the Reagan building. For me, I saw humility. When you speak about President Obama, I see a lot of humility because he made us feel like I've been where you have been. What do you have to say about President Obama?
So Africa's future also belongs to those who take charge of that kind of transparency and are serious about anti-corruption measures. Africa's future belongs to those who take charge of their health, like the HIV/AIDS counselor from Malawi who helps others by bravely sharing her own experience of being HIV positive. That's Tamara Banda. Where's Tamara? There she is right there. Thank you, Tamara. So our global health initiative is not merely treating diseases, it's strengthening prevention and Africa's public health systems. And I want to be very clear, we've continued to increase funds to fight HIV/AIDS to record levels, and we'll continue to do whatever it takes to save lives and invest in healthier futures. Africa's future also belongs to societies that protects the rights of all its people, especially its women.
For me, I felt a sense of great energy. I remember when they announced, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America, everyone just kept quiet.
I know.
And then he came in and everyone was like, whoa, everyone was talking in their language, saying what I don't know. But for me,
So inspired.
yeah, I know. I was transfixed to say, wow, finally I met him, because he's been my idol.
So the bottom line is this: Africa's future belongs to its young people, including a woman who inspires young people across Botswana with her popular radio show called The Real Enchilada. And that's Tumi Ramsden. Where's Tumi? Right here, The Real Enchilada. As all of you go to, as all of you pursue your dreams, as you go to school, you find a job, you make your voices heard, you mobilize people, America wants to support your aspirations. So we're going to keep helping empower African youth, supporting education, increasing educational exchanges, like the one that brought my father from Kenya in the days when Kenyans were throwing off colonial rule and reaching for a new future. And we're helping to strengthen grassroots networks of young people who believe, as they're saying in Kenya today, yes, youth can. Yes, youth can. So
the big moment, of course, is when he shook my hand.
For me, the big moment was when he went through the first row, because we were on the second row, and I was like, we are not going to really meet him. And he made like a way in the first row and came straight in my face. He shook my hand first in the second row. I was like, oh my God. You know, it was just too much for me. So he is really humble. That's what I can say. And he believes in volunteerism. I think that was the key message. People should volunteer to uplift the lives of other people.
one of the things that I think everybody here has to really internalize is the notion that, I think it was Gandhi who once said, you have to be the change that you seek. You have to be the change that you seek. And one of the wonderful things about the United States is that in my position as president, there are often times where I get frustrated. I think I know more than some of my critics. And yet, we have institutionalized the notion that those critics have every right to criticize me, no matter how unreasonable I think they may be. And I have to stand before the people for an election. And I'm limited to 2 terms. Doesn't matter how good a job I do. And that's good, because what that means is that we've instituted a culture where the institutions of democracy are more important than any one individual. And now, it's not as if we're perfect. Obviously, we've got all kinds of problems as well. But what it does mean is that the peaceful transfer of power and the notion that people always have a voice, our trust in that democratic process is one that has to be embraced in all your countries as well. Okay? All right, it's a gentleman's turn. Let me try to get this side of the table here. This gentleman right here. I'm not going to get everybody, so right. I apologize in advance.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Felix Rimban from Malawi. Mr. President, HIV/AIDS is greatly affecting development in Africa. And if this continues, I'm afraid I think Africa has no future. And I think it's young people like us that must bring change. And we really need a strong HIV prevention program, but again, access to treatment must be there. I attended the recent World AIDS Conference in Vienna, and the critics were saying that the West and the US government is not supporting enough the HIV/AIDS work in Africa through the PEPFAR and the Global Fund. But again, on the other side, other HIV/AIDS activists are saying that Africa on its own has not mobilized enough resources to fight the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and they are largely depending on the West. I think the challenge for us as African young leaders is to make sure that this comes to an end, and we really need to reduce the transmission. I don't know from your perspective, what can we do to make sure that this comes to a stop? Otherwise, it's greatly affecting development in Africa.
Well, let me start by just talking about the United States and what we're doing. I had some disagreements with my predecessor, but one of the outstanding things that President Bush did was to initiate the PEPFAR program. It's a huge investment in battling HIV/AIDS, both with respect to prevention and also with respect to treatment. Billions of dollars were committed. We have built off of that. So when you hear critics, what the critics are saying is that although I've increased the funding of the PEPFAR program. They would like to see it increased even more, which I'm sympathetic to, given the fact that the need is so great. But understand, I've increased it. I haven't decreased it. At a time when, the United States is suffering from the worst coming out of the worst economic recession that we've seen since the 1930s. Nevertheless, because of our commitment to this issue, we've actually increased funding. Now, we have couched it in a broader initiative we call the Global Health Initiative, because even as we're battling HIV/AIDS, we want to make sure that we are thinking not only in terms of treatment, but also in terms of prevention and preventing transmission. We're never going to have enough money to simply treat people who are constantly getting infected. We've got to have a mechanism to stop the transmission rate. And so one of the things we're trying to do is to build greater public health infrastructure, find what prevention programs are working, how can we institutionalize them, make them culturally specific, because not every program is going to be appropriate for every country. I will say that in Africa in particular, one thing we do know is that empowering women is going to be critical to reduce the transmission rate. We do know that, because so often women not having any control over sexual practices in their own body end up having extremely high transmission rates. So the bottom line is we're going to focus on prevention, building a public health infrastructure. We're still going to be funding at very high levels antiviral drugs. But keep in mind, we will never have enough money. It will be endless, an endless effort, if the transmission rates stay high and we're just trying to treat people after they're sick. It's the classic story of a group of people come upon all these bodies in a stream, and everybody jumps in and starts pulling bodies out. But one wise person goes downstream to see what's exactly happening that's causing all these people to drown or fall in the water.
I'd like to thank you so much for your words of wisdom, for your counsel.
Mama Abana, HAJAT NAMBI FARIDAH, Uganda is proud of you.